It's John Black, super chemist, and we're gonna go over what I just said in the last video. Lyndon B. Johnson, a relative of Bush, right, became president because JFK was assassinated. Who assassinated JFK? Harvey Lee Oswald, a relative of Lyndon B. Johnson and a relative of George Bush, killed JFK, and then his relative moved into to be the president. Then he made up the Warren Commission, right? And who's on the Warren Commission? Well, Lyndon B. Johnson, who's related to George Bush, and related to the killer, the assassin, Oswald. He gets another relative of all of them people, Gerald Ford, and puts him in the Warren Commission, along with other relatives, okay? But this is the most well-known one. Then, when Gerald Ford becomes president, he makes another commission, the Rockefeller Commission. Nelson Rockefeller being another elite family mafia, thing. And he agrees with everybody, obviously, because everybody's related, right? They're all part of the same mafia family. Saying that it was one shooter, it was Oswald, and there was, only so many bullets or whatever. Then the U.S. Senate, who is not controlled by the elite mafia, not all of the Senate, not all of the Senate is controlled by them at this time. They make the church committee, and they say it was a conspiracy. They lied, and they made all this stuff up, And then J. Edgar Hoover, all this stuff that he gets. All this stuff that he was best friends with Lyndon B. Johnson his entire life. They were literally, for decades, were next door neighbors, probably lovers. Well, not lovers, but sex partners. And then right before J. Edgar Hoover testifies to, in front of the Warren Commission, literally days before, Lyndon B. Johnson, he tells everybody, he announces that J. Edgar Hoover now has a lifetime position as the director of the FBI. He was already the director of FBI, but now he has a lifetime position. Then days later, 2 days later, he testifies in the Warren Commission. But yeah, Harvey Oswald was related to Lyndon B. Johnson, Gerald Ford, all the people that gained power and investigated the assassination. Okay, now let's get over to the next one, right? Because, let's see here, right? What do we got here? We got first JFK. Let's go down to JFK. He's the only one that isn't related. It isn't a puppet, so they shoot him. Who do we got next that isn't related? The next one who isn't related is Ronald Reagan. Okay. What happens to him? Remember, he gets shot. Not killed. By who? A guy named John Hinckley. And guess what? Remember the name Samuel Hinckley. That's where we started from in America, where this bloodline of these kings and queens have taken over and infiltrated our government. He's the main ancestor that they all came from. You know what I mean? And then if you take his ancestry, it goes back to the kings and queens in England. You know what I mean? Elizabeth II, King Edward I in the 1700s. But yeah, John Hinckley, Samuel Hinckley, yeah, they're related. Not only is the assassin guy who killed JFK related to the Bushes, but also the only other guy who isn't related to the Bushes that isn't a puppet, the only other guy, Ronald Reagan, also gets shot in the head by a relative of George Bush. Well, George Bush's vice president. It's like, come on now, after this, come on, man. Really? But only two people. You could go back, all of them are related, man. Every last freaking one of these people are related. All the way back to McKinley. And he dies We see how he dies, right? He gets 4 terms. First 3 has totally different. He has different vice presidents. You know, Hobart at first for the first 2 years. No one for the next 2 years. So he's 3 terms. He's got no relative of Bush as a vice president, and he survives. His 4th term, he only survives a couple months. Because his Bush family member, Roosevelt, slid in there as vice president, and magically he died from whatever he died from, a heart attack or, whatever they lied about. But and he might have died. It might have been just a regular accident, or, just he had a heart attack. It might have. I don't know. I'm just saying it's fishy. It moves. It shows into my pattern because the only guy not related to George Bush after this McKinley guy is who? Who? JFK. And look what happens to him. He dies too. He gets shot in the head. And magically, he had a Bush as his vice president. And Eisenhower wasn't related, but he was a puppet. We all know he was definitely a puppet. He was a bigger puppet than Biden and Clinton. Who's the next guy that isn't related? Reagan. What happens to him? And it's a relative that kills both of these people? Really? Then you got the next guy. Every one of these, Bill Clinton. He's a puppet. And then what happens? Everyone's related to George Bush. Both of them are related. Obama's related to them. Then you got Donald Trump. Now, what happens to Donald Trump? They tried to assassinate him like 10 times, man. Or at least 7. And 4 of them were deep state. I know 4 of them were deep. Well, I don't know. But I believe 4 of them were deep state because they were 4 years apart. You know what I mean? 2016, right before the election, he gets assassination attempt. 4 years later, 2020, right before the election. We're talking like months. Another assassination. 4 years later, just months before the election. Again, you got Crooks and then that Ralph. You know what I mean? And then there might have been another one by an Iranian. I don't know. But those ones, they were 4 years apart, literally months before the election. Come on. 3 times at 2016, 2020, and 2024. How many coincidences can we say? How many coincidences can I tell you before you're like, hey man, maybe these coincidences aren't coincidences. You know what I mean? Maybe the reason why the only people not related to the Bushes and not puppets of the Bushes was JFK, Reagan, and Trump. And maybe the reason why the people related, that tried to kill JFK and Ronald Reagan were both related to the Bushes, maybe because they planned it. Maybe these 4 out of 7 assassination attempts that I named, maybe they are deep state since they're 4 years apart. Exactly. And I didn't look into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of these, like Ralph or Crooks, I would not be surprised if one of them was related to George Bush. I'm not going to look into it. I don't give a crap. I don't think he is. But if he was, I definitely would not, be surprised in any way. You know what I mean? But does everyone see my pattern that I am showing you? They try to get both president and vice president to be related to Bush. And if the president is not related to Bush and he does not play ball, he is not a puppet, they will kill him. They will shoot him in the head, just like JFK, just like Reagan, they shot him in the head, and just like, oh my God, actually they shot Trump in the head too, because the ear is part of his head. Oh my God, all 3 of them, the only 3 that didn't play ball, okay, there's only 6 people that ain't related to him, really, since whatever, right? 3 is JFK, Reagan, and Trump. They didn't play ball. Those 3 all got shot. Then there were 3 that played ball. Eisenhower, Clinton, and Biden. They all played ball. They all were puppets. And yet they were the only ones. And then everyone else was just related to Bush. Since the beginning of this country. I mean, I could see if these people were all related, but they weren't related from kings and queens. You know, that just makes it more sinister. Like King Edward's, you know, these people, they instill entitlement into their children. You know what I mean? They instill this idea that if you're not royalty, that you are just garbage dirt beneath their feet. That's why they don't even royals wouldn't even have sex with people that weren't related to them, because if you weren't royal, then you were garbage. It would like me going down and getting some homeless chick, and she has no teeth and she's dirty as hell, and that's what they think of all of us. Even if you make $1 million a year, if you ain't royal, that's how they perceive you. They perceive you as that homeless, insane person that's running down the road half ripping their clothes off because they're crazy. You know what I mean? That's who they think we are, right? And that's instilled in their children. And from children, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I hate that saying, because I don't believe that you should judge a man by his family. You know what I mean? But sometimes, and we all know these families, you know what I mean? Everyone has them, where all the kids are garbage. The entire family is just garbage. They're all criminals. They're all in and out of jail. Everyone knows this one family. Even if you're in a good school or whatever. I mean, I'm not talking about elitist school. I'm talking about like a middle class school or whatever. Everyone has that one family, at least, where the kids are just crazy. They just steal things. The parents are horrible. They're criminals. The mother is, on drugs. Everyone, when it's that kind of family, you can, I'm not saying it's right to judge the whole family, but you should be wary of the whole family. You know what I mean? Just like these kings and queens, and they're so inbred, right? This incest, and it continues when they come to America. These people, all these how they're related, all these people, they're not just related one way. They're like, at very least 2, sometimes it's 5 or 7 times where they're related. They're like, yeah, I'm my own grandfather's and my mother's. They're you know what I mean? Like this guy, like this relative of mine is my nephew, and I'm his uncle, but I'm also his brother, and I'm also his grandfather. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. That's how there's 20 different ways with some of these people that they're related. They're so inbred, and they're so, no wonder they're between the entitlement of the queen teaching the child to be entitled and they're better, and that being passed on. That in conjunction with what I just said, what was this? I just lost my whole train of thought. That in conjunction with the fact that these families, they're evil, man. They are literally responsible for hundreds of millions of lives. They are the elite mafia who starts every war. They instigate it, they start it, they fund all the weapons because they make money on that. They loan out all the money from the Federal Reserve Bank that they get interest on. Then when they're done with the war, they go in with their mega construction companies, and our tax dollar pays them to rebuild what their own companies destroyed. You know what I mean? During a war over another foreign land. It's like these people, this World War II alone was what, 50 million to 80 million deaths? They are responsible for all those deaths. World War II, what, another 50 million? These people are responsible for hundreds of millions. That's the type of mentality that they teach their children. You know what I mean? And these people today that are, you think like George Bush, he thinks of us as nothing. Look at what he did to the Middle East or whatever, the Iran and all that. Just destroying them, and what? So that his oil company, yeah, that's how it was. It's like Kuwait. Yeah, he wanted Kuwait to give his oil company all the cheap oil or free oil. Just let me steal it from you and use the taxpayers' dollar and armed forces to do it.